Time magazine placed her alongside LeBron James and Lionel Messi, not in a ranking of great athletes, but in its most exclusive category, icons. At just 22 years old, Caitlin Clark helped transform the WNBA almost overnight, driving record-breaking television ratings, sold-out arenas across the country, and the highest jersey sales the league has ever seen. But while fans flooded into the sport, a bigger question began to emerge.
Yeah, I mean, look at these fans, they're incredible, so if it wasn't for them, I don't know if they'd be here.
Was the league ready for the moment it had been given? And could it turn a historic surge of attention into lasting success? This is the story of unprecedented growth, missed opportunities, and a window that may not stay open forever. Let's explore the judgment of time. The Time 100 list has been published annually since 1999, and in that time it has functioned as something beyond a popularity contest or a social media moment. It is an institutional verdict, a judgment made by editors, journalists, and cultural observers who spend their professional lives evaluating lasting significance.
We work with our correspondents, our reporters, our bureaus all across the world. We consult with them and other experts on who should be on this year's list,
rather than trending status. To appear on the list at all is notable. To appear in the icons category is something else entirely. The icons designation within the Time 100 is the smallest and most selective tier on the list. It is not given to athletes who had a good season. It is not given to celebrities who had a cultural moment. It is reserved in the judgment of one of the most credible editorial institutions in the world for figures who have already begun to reshape the landscape around them in ways that will outlast the current news cycle. In 2024, that list included LeBron James. It included Lionel Messi, and it included Caitlin Clark. Think about what that actually means.
And check this out, Caitlin Clark has been named Time's Athlete of the Year.
LeBron James is widely considered the greatest basketball player of his generation and arguably the most culturally significant athlete in American sports history since Muhammad Ali. Lionel Messi is, by most credible accounts, the greatest football player ever to play the game. Time placed Caitlin Clark in her first full professional season on a team that had won 14 games the year before she arrived in the same categorical tier as both of them.
Mitchell bouncing, Howard, the left hand.
That is not a compliment. That is a historical assessment, and it deserves to be understood as one. What makes the Time Icons placement significant beyond the prestige of the publication is the specific criteria the editorial team applies. The question is not who is famous. The question is who has changed something in their field, in their culture, in the way people think about what is possible. LeBron changed the NBA's relationship with player agency. Messi changed the trajectory of American soccer.
Lionel Messi reaches out for more history.
Time's argument in placing Clark alongside them is that she is already doing something equivalent to women's professional basketball in the United States. And the evidence behind that argument, the viewership numbers, the attendance figures, the broadcast deals, the cultural conversation does not require a favorable interpretation to hold up. It holds up on its own. Here is what is easy to miss when a story like this gets compressed into a headline. The Time Icons placement did not happen because Caitlin Clark had a good rookie season.
Congratulations, Caitlin. You are the 2024 Kia WNBA Rookie of the Year.
It happened because, in the judgment of editors who evaluate long-term cultural significance for a living, something had already fundamentally shifted around her, something that was not going to reverse itself when the season ended. The question worth asking, and the question this video is going to spend time on, is whether the institution that is supposed to benefit most from that shift has treated it with anything close to the seriousness it deserves. The numbers that changed everything. Before anyone debates whether the WNBA did enough with Caitlin Clark's arrival,
There was a lot of this young woman, Caitlin Clark.
18 points in the first half, scoring 1,000 in her career, the fastest player to do so in Big Ten history.
It is worth pausing to examine the one thing that cannot be argued with: the numbers. Because numbers do not care about opinions. They do not care about narratives, social media arguments, or ideological preferences. They simply measure reality. And the reality of what happened between 2023 and 2024 was extraordinary. Professional sports leagues spend decades searching for growth. They invest billions into marketing campaigns, television partnerships, expansion strategies, and player development systems, hoping to capture even a fraction of the kind of audience surge the WNBA experienced in a single season.
WNBA star Caitlin Clark is transforming women's sport, and her games have smashed TV viewership records.
Most leagues never find it. The WNBA did. Television was the first signal that something unusual was happening. Viewership across ESPN and ABC surged dramatically during the 2024 season, reaching levels the league had rarely seen before. But the raw increase in ratings only tells part of the story. The more significant detail was where those viewers were going. Again and again, the largest audiences were appearing whenever the Indiana Fever were on the schedule.
And fever was high and in full supply at Welsh Ryan Arena.
Suddenly, games that would once have attracted niche audiences were becoming national events. Broadcast executives noticed, advertisers noticed, sports media noticed. The numbers became impossible to ignore. Some Fever broadcasts drew audiences that rivaled or surpassed NBA regular season games airing in comparable television windows. Think about what that means.
For college basketball history.
This shot put Caitlin Clark into the history books.
For years, women's basketball had fought for visibility, attention, and consistent national exposure. Now a rookie-led team was producing television results that forced networks to reconsider what the league's actual ceiling might be. That is not normal growth. That is a market-revealing demand that had previously gone untapped. The arenas told the same story. Indiana Fever home games became one of the hottest tickets in professional basketball.
Look at this line that started hours ago.
I dropped my son off at 8:30, parked at 9, and was up here.
Go Hawks.
Sellouts became routine rather than exceptional. Yet the truly remarkable development occurred outside Indianapolis. Wherever Caitlin Clark traveled, attendance followed. Teams across the league suddenly found themselves hosting some of the largest crowds in franchise history. Arenas that had struggled to fill seats were reaching capacity. Organizations moved games to larger venues in anticipation of demand. In city after city, fans who had never attended a WNBA game before were buying tickets specifically to see Clark play. That distinction matters. Many athletes help their own franchise. Very few increase demand for every team they visit. That phenomenon is sometimes called a traveling attraction effect.
Caitlin Clark has become a national phenom, and some fans say they went the extra mile just to watch her play here.
It is one of the rarest and most valuable forms of influence an athlete can possess because the economic benefit spreads throughout the entire league. The Fever were not the only organization making money from Caitlin Clark's popularity. Everyone was. Then came the merchandise numbers. Jerseys are often treated as a secondary statistic, but executives understand their real significance. A jersey sale represents commitment. It is not passive viewership. It is not someone casually leaving a game on television. It is a consumer choosing to spend money and publicly identify with a player. Clark's Indiana Fever jersey quickly became the best-selling jersey in WNBA history.
Just minutes after Clark was picked, stores rolled out Caitlin Clark Indiana Fever jerseys and t-shirts.
Many of those purchases came from people who had never bought WNBA merchandise before. Every new customer represented an expansion of the league's audience. Every first-time buyer represented a fan entering the ecosystem. Which brings us back to Time Magazine's decision to place Clark in the icons category alongside LeBron James and Lionel Messi.
Time Magazine has named basketball sensation Caitlin Clark as its 2024 Athlete of the Year.
After all, LeBron and Messi built careers that spanned decades. But Time was not evaluating career length. When LeBron entered the NBA in 2003, television ratings began climbing after years of uncertainty following Michael Jordan's retirement. When Messi arrived in Major League Soccer in 2023, attendance, subscriptions, merchandise sales, and media attention exploded almost immediately. Finally, the leagues adjusted their strategies to maximize the opportunity. That pattern matters because it provides a roadmap. The NBA recognized what LeBron represented and built around it.
Oh my Lord! Oh my Lord! In fact, somebody just spilled a beer all over us.
MLS recognized what Messi represented and moved aggressively to capitalize on the moment. Both leagues understood a simple reality. Transformational athletes create windows of opportunity, but those windows do not remain open forever. The WNBA suddenly found itself facing the same challenge. The ratings had moved, the attendance had moved, the merchandise had moved, the cultural conversation had moved, the evidence was already on the table. The question was no longer whether Caitlin Clark had changed the league.
Caitlin Clark is doing things beyond her years.
The question was whether the league understood the magnitude of what had happened and whether it would move quickly enough to turn a historic moment into a permanent transformation. What the moment required. When a league experiences the kind of sudden, documented commercial expansion that the WNBA experienced in 2024, and how much fades when the circumstances that created it change. The NBA in 2003 did not simply wait for LeBron to carry the league forward.
On shot, another one! A triple right there, 2 in a row for LeBron James.
It restructured broadcast agreements, invested in production quality. MLS in 2023 moved aggressively to amplify the Messi effect through expanded broadcast deals, deliberate scheduling of high-profile matches, and a level of marketing investment that treated his arrival as a league-defining moment rather than a one-team story. What did the WNBA do? The honest answer is that the league did some things well and left significant opportunities on the table, and the gap between what was done and what the moment warranted is the core of why this conversation matters. On the positive side, the league secured expanded broadcast presence. The 2024 season received more national television coverage.
Bridge Fieldhouse logo. Caitlin shakes up Rebecca Gardner, driving right lane. Baker, good, plus a foul.
Than any previous WNBA season, and the commercial conversation around the league shifted in ways that will have lasting effects on future rights negotiations. Those are real institutional wins, and they should not be minimized. But the scheduling decisions of 2024 drew documented criticism from players, coaches, and observers who noted that a league experiencing its highest profile season in history was also running a calendar that created unnecessary travel burdens, compressed rest windows, and in some cases placed high visibility games in slots.
Caitlin Clark has been making people pay since her freshman year in Iowa City.
That underserved the audiences they were capable of drawing. These were not isolated complaints from disgruntled parties. They were consistent, documented, publicly available observations from people inside the sport who had direct experience of how the schedule affected performance and presentation. The salary structure remains the most frequently cited institutional gap, and it is worth examining without the emotional freight that often surrounds this particular conversation. Caitlin Clark's base WNBA salary in her rookie season was governed by the existing collective bargaining agreement.
The WNBA and its players' union reached a tentative deal on a new contract.
which sets compensation at levels that reflect the league's historical revenue rather than its current or projected commercial value. The numbers are documented in public. Clark's base salary placed her in a tier that, when measured against the commercial value she was generating through broadcast deals, ticket sales, and merchandise, represented one of the largest gaps between individual player value and individual player compensation in American professional sports history. The league's existing structure was not designed for a player who could triple viewership in a single season. That is not an accusation, it is a structural observation. Every professional sports league, at some point in its history, has faced the challenge of structural frameworks built for one era that do not match the commercial realities of a new one. What separates the leagues that capitalize on transformational moments from the ones that lose them is the speed and seriousness with which they recognize the gap and begin closing it. The NBA recognized that gap in the early 2000s. MLS recognized it in 2023.
Running it back towards Messi. Busquets!
Whether the WNBA is moving at the speed this moment requires, the LeBron and Messi template, the LeBron James and Lionel Messi comparisons are not flattery. They are functional templates, documented cases of what happens when a generational talent arrives in a league and both the player and the institution around them execute correctly. Understanding those cases in concrete terms is the most useful thing anyone trying to evaluate because the pattern is not mysterious. It has already played out twice in recent memory, in detail, with public data attached to every stage of it. LeBron James entered the NBA in 2003 as the most anticipated rookie in the history of the draft.
The 2003 draft was viewed as a franchise-changing players, and that would be LeBron James.
The Cleveland Cavaliers, the franchise that selected him, had averaged around 11,000 fans per game in his draft season. Within 2 years of his arrival, they were selling out regularly. Within 4 years, they were in the NBA Finals. The franchise's value, according to documented financial reporting at the time, increased by several 100% across the first decade of his tenure. But here is the part that is easy to forget. The NBA did not simply watch that happen. The league restructured its television deal, invested in how LeBron's games were broadcast nationally, and made deliberate choices about scheduling and exposure that amplified the audience he was already generating. The player created the moment. Lionel Messi's arrival at Inter Miami in the summer of 2023 is the more recent case.
Kimi wandering into the middle, and the shot by Messi!
And in some ways the more instructive one, because MLS was, at that point, in a position not entirely unlike the WNBA's position in 2024. A league with significant potential but inconsistent commercial performance, a product that the American sports audience had historically respected more than it had consumed. A broadcast situation that had not fully reflected the league's actual viewership ceiling. Messi's first game for Inter Miami drew a television audience that broke MLS records. His team's matches became the highest rated in the league's history.
Run by Messi, brilliantly finished.
Apple TV, which held the MLS broadcast rights, reported subscriber additions directly attributable to Messi's presence. And MLS moved not slowly, not tentatively. The international rights conversations, all of it shifted to reflect the reality that something structurally significant had arrived. Now apply that template honestly to the WNBA's situation with Caitlin Clark. The viewership numbers in 2024 matched or exceeded what the Messi effect produced for MLS in its first season. The attendance transformation was comparable. The merchandise story was comparable. And this is the central gap that the Time Icon's recognition throws into sharp relief, was the speed and scale of the institutional response. MLS did not take 2 years to figure out what Messi meant for the league. The NBA did not take 2 years to figure out what LeBron meant. The institutions that benefit from generational talent are the ones that recognize it immediately and structure themselves around it aggressively. The ones that move slowly do not lose the player, they lose the window. What does it actually mean to lose the window? It means that the audience expansion that a generational player creates, the new fans, the casual viewers, the merchandise buyers who had never engaged with the sport before, is a temporary population that can either be converted into permanent fans or lost when their attention moves elsewhere. The NBA converted LeBron's audience into permanent NBA fans. MLS is in the process of converting Messi's audience into permanent MLS fans. Whether the WNBA is moving fast enough to convert the audience that Caitlin Clark created in 2024 into permanent WNBA fans, that is the institutional question that the Time Icon's recognition makes. Impossible to ignore. The window will not stay open. The window created by a player like Caitlin Clark, that is not pessimism, it is the documented history of every comparable situation in professional sports. The question for the WNBA in 2025, 2026, and 2027 is whether the institutional infrastructure is being built fast enough and seriously enough to convert the momentum of 2024 into something durable. There are real reasons for genuine optimism. There are also real reasons for clear-eyed concern. On the optimism side, the broadcast deals that the WNBA has secured in the years surrounding Clark's arrival represent a genuine structural upgrade. The league's new media rights agreements, which include significantly expanded presence on major broadcast and streaming platforms, are built on a commercial foundation that reflects the post-Clark reality of what WNBA viewership can be, not the pre-Clark baseline that previous deals were negotiated against. That matters enormously, because television money is what funds the infrastructure, the salaries, the travel, the training facilities, the marketing budgets that determines whether a professional sports league can sustain and build on a moment of commercial expansion. The new deals represent an institutional acknowledgement that the WNBA's ceiling is higher than its historical floor. The expansion conversation adds another dimension. New franchises entering the WNBA represent an institutional bet on the league's long-term commercial viability, and that bet, in the current environment, is heavily influenced by the demonstrated reality of what Clark has done for market interest across the entire league.
WNBA draft pick reportedly set to sign an 8-year sneaker deal with Nike worth $28 million.
Expansion teams in markets with strong basketball cultures, anchored by a broadcast infrastructure that gives them genuine national visibility, create the conditions for the kind of geographic and demographic diversification that makes a league structurally resilient. If those franchises are built correctly, and if the league treats their arrival as seriously as the NBA treated its expansion periods and MLS treated its post-Messi growth phase, the structural foundation of the WNBA in 5 years could look substantially different from what it looked like in 2023. The salary structure is where the clearest institutional work remains to be done. The existing collective bargaining agreement was negotiated against a commercial reality that no longer exists. The next negotiation, whenever it comes, will happen in the context of a league whose broadcast value, attendance profile, and cultural visibility have been fundamentally altered by what Caitlin Clark's first 2 seasons produced.
All of this. Oh, Caitlin Clark, rookie on rookie crime right there in Mule's face.
Whether the players in the league can reach an agreement that reflects that new reality, rather than anchoring to the historical baseline, will be one of the most significant institutional decisions the WNBA makes in the next several years. The players who will negotiate that deal are doing so with considerably more leverage than any previous WNBA generation has had, because the commercial evidence of what this league can generate now exists in a form that is documented, public, and undeniable. And then there is Caitlin Clark herself, which is ultimately where every honest version of this conversation has to land. Time magazine did not place her in the icons category as a projection. They did not put her there because of what she might become if things break right. They put her there because of what she had already done in one season. At 22 years old,
Clark will launch, draw the foul!
In a league that was not structured to receive what she brought to it. The viewership numbers existed, the attendance records existed, the cultural conversation existed. The editorial board of one of the most credible publications in the world looked at all of it and made a judgment. This person has already changed something fundamental, and the change is not reversible. What has not yet been fully resolved and what the WNBA's next several years will determine is whether the institution around her moves with the urgency that the moment deserves. LeBron got a league that restructured itself around what he represented.
Makes his home debut tonight. LeBron James and the Lakers at the Staples Center.
Messi got a league that recognized immediately what his arrival meant and built toward it. Caitlin Clark is an icon by the judgment of Time magazine in the same tier as both of them. The question that remains is whether the WNBA will look back at this period and say it matched the moment, or whether it will look back and reckon with the cost of moving too slowly when the window was open and the world was watching. Caitlin Clark's story is no longer about potential. The records have already been set, the arenas have already been filled, and the numbers have already changed the conversation around women's basketball. The real question now is what happens next. History shows that generational athletes create opportunities, but it is the institutions around them that determine whether those opportunities become lasting change. LeBron transformed the NBA. Messi reshaped MLS. Time magazine believes Clark belongs in that same conversation. The window is open, but it will not stay open forever. Will the WNBA build on this moment and create a new era? Or look back wondering what might have been? Only time will tell.